afternoon. I'm glad that you found time to be with us today. 5 minutes past 3 p.m. here in Nairobi, East African time. The show is Diaspora Dispatches. My name is Miriam Magutu, and as usual, it is a pleasure to have you on board. So this afternoon, we shall have a continuation of a conversation that we have been having and a developing story in one of the top stories from across the continent of Africa, and that is the continued conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and it has a lot of facets, and this conflict has numerous driving factors that we know. One of those factors is ethnicity, and so we shall be looking bit by bit, even as we try to unravel this conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo, especially in regards to the interest that continue to fuel this conflict. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where you are tuned in and watching us this afternoon. So today we shall look at the ethnic divisions that continue to stroke DRC's conflict, and of course we know throughout history ethnic stereotypes have been used to justify mass violence, in some cases exclusion, oppression and inequality in many corners of the world. And in times of violent upheaval and conflict, ethnic narratives often come to the fore, as we have been seeing that playing out in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And as much as this is even true, the origin of the stakes have little to do with ethnicity. Usually there's something behind that that is driving. So the Democratic Republic of Congo is recognized as the second most ethnically diverse nation in the world, with several, communities making up the greater fabric of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Now, there has been some communal fightings. There has been some fightings between the Hima and the Lendu communities, from 2017, the United Nations Human Rights Office, which accused the members of the ethnic Lendu community in the Democratic Republic of Congo's in Ituri province. You remember that also brought a lot of heightened attention over that area of mass violations against the ethnic Hima community, which could constitute crimes against humanity. Inter-ethnic tensions between the Lendu and Hima communities over land and the resources have gone on for decades, but the UN Human Rights Office reports those disputes have spiraled out of control. And a UN investigation from December 2017 to September 2019 found more than 700 people were killed during that time. But today, we are not going to focus so much on this also violence that happened between these two communities. Also, that was very atrocious. But here I'll draw our attention to the Eastern DRC, which, especially in South Kivu and North Kivu, that is the Hima and Lendu were fighting in the Ituri province. So the issue of the Banyamulenge, these are the Wanyarwandans, as they are commonly referred to in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and what this community has to do with these tensions that we've seen inside of the Democratic Republic of Congo, within Congolese themselves, and also Congo and Rwanda. And so that is where we are going to just base our focus this afternoon. Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo has had few periods of peace for decades. Violence today is concentrated in North Kivu, South Kivu, and Ituri. In South Kivu, violence against the Banyamulenge moved into a new phase in mid-2017 when economic warfare and siege have been added to the arsenal of what appears to be a long-term plan to wipe out the Banyamulenge people from the Democratic Republic of Congo altogether. So this is according to very credible reports of some investigations and just, reports from these areas. The Banyamulenge civilians have been victims of repeated attacks perpetrated by local and foreign armed militias, sometimes supported by the National Army, FARDC, that is the National Army of the Democratic Republic of Congo. And from 2017 to 2021, more than 300 Banyamulenge villages were reduced to ashes, their inhabitants fleeing violence, while their land and cattle once ensured Banyamulenge a decent living. Now both sources of income are disseminated. not even in Mikenke, where the community is supposedly under the UN peacekeeper MONUSCO protection, are civilians safe from attacks, kidnapping, sexual violence, and killings. So I'd like for us to just have a bit of a history of why this is so and why Banyamulenges are perceived to being targeted. And according to numerous credible reports, even the United Nations and other institutions that have really highlighted that they are targeted attacks and killings over this community, and where perhaps that draws in the M23, as we shall see while continuing with the show. The resurgence of the M23 rebellion in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, the retaliatory attacks on Rwandans, in the country, and Kinshasa's accusations that the insurgents are backed by Kigali has brought new focus on the Banyarwanda question, all right, the Banyamulenge. Inside there, they're known as Banyarwanda. Now, people of Rwanda descent, speaking Kinyarwanda, the national language of Rwanda, and practicing the Rwandan culture, are Tutsi, Hutu, and Twa. So inside of DRC, they also have these communities, the Tutsis and the Hutus, all right? So, and Twa, which is a sub-clan of Tutsi inside the DRC, but they practice the Rwandan culture because that is their ancestral, that's where you trace them from. It is estimated that there are 40 million Banyarwanda in the Great Lakes region, with 13 million of them being Rwandan citizens. Others are in Uganda, and then you'll find others in Burundi. You'll find a few of them in Tanzania and in the Democratic Republic of Congo. So why is it that only those who are in the DRC are now being targeted, while we do have another population of them in Burundi? Well, there has been some problems, there's some ethnical problems there. We shall look at it some other time. And not in Tanzania or in other parts where they are found. Why is it that it's only in the DRC that they're being targeted? And usually areas bordering Rwanda, that's where you will find them, this community. In Kenya and in Europe and North America, of these Banyarwanda, a few are nationals of these countries as a result of the 19th and 20th century migrations, most having been settled there for at least 4 centuries. And contrary to popular belief, the Banyarwanda are not always supportive of Rwandan president or Rwandan government. Okay, in the history of them being in other countries does not guarantee that they actually support, the president or any other leadership in Rwanda as it has been perceived, nor are they of one community versus another among Nyarus. That's how they call themselves. They have other clan names, and I will explain as we continue, as they are called in Uganda. While Banyarwanda are fairly accepted in other countries, in the DRC they have been at the heart of conflict for almost 3 decades now. There are several communities of Banyarwanda in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, most scattered in North Kivu, the Banya Masisi, the Banya Jombo, Banya Buisha, Banya Ruchuru, Banya Muhigi, and those of Kivu South, commonly known as Banya Mulenge. That is Banya meaning people of. All right, people of, that's the meaning of Banya. They simply took up names of their localities where they come from. All right, so if you are here in Kenya and you come from, say, Muranga, so you will be Banya Muranga or something, because that's where you come from. And I think we also make reference like that in the different ethnical communities we come from. I know from my own tribe we do that. You are a daughter from this place or a son from this place. So that is what this Banya means here, people of. They simply took up names of their localities, as I have said, while the majority of the Banya in these countries identify as Hutu. Those who identify as Tutsi, the minority, have struggled to be accepted. As a result, Banyarwanda is often used to exclude the Tutsi. So the Tutsis and Hutus with their roots from Rwanda, so they both refer themselves as Banyarwanda. But the Hutus have gained acceptability in DRC as opposed to Tutsis, who are struggling to gain acceptability, and there has been some level of exclusion and marginalization. Now, the M23 movement in North Kivu is made up of Northerners and opposed by many Banyamulenge Southerners who have their own military faction named Turwa Neho, or translated in English means let us save ourselves. Okay, so they want to save the Banyamulenge. They want to save. They want to save themselves, and an almost defunct Gumino, meaning let us stay here. Okay, so they have these connotations. These names already are problematic, and it tells you what kind of ideological. What kind of ideology they actually represent, even by just looking at the kind of names they choose to call themselves. Now, the Banyamulenge, however, are not a monolith. They have no single thought, no hierarchy, no spokesperson. Dissensions between Banyamulenge have always existed, but they often set their differences aside and act jointly in reaction to frequent attacks by militias of non-Rwandan communities living with them, named the Mai Mai, in connivance with corrupt commanders of the National Army of FARDC and a Burundian faction named as Red Tabara. I'm sure these are names that you've heard being mentioned every now and then. Due to delays and irregularities of salary payment or just greed, FARDC commanders conspire with militias to conduct illegal exploitation of minerals and extort civilians. Generals based in Minembwe collaborate with the Mai Mai and an extremely violent militia composed of Bambembe, Bafuliro and Banyindu, working with Bavira, 3 of the 4 South Kivu tribes historically antagonistic to the Banyamulenge, attack them, kill their members and rustle their cattle. So I'm just trying to get us into the the inside details of how these communities that are perceived to be coming from one place found themselves in the DRC and how they have been having bad bloods. And we look at how perhaps the clanism and all this is playing into the larger ethnic divisions that we see stroking Rwanda's conflict. Now, the Red Tabara, on the one hand, was founded after the failed coup d'etat against then-President Pierre Nkurunziza, remember, in 2015. So they are from Burundi. So that's why you've heard Burundi being mentioned in the conflict, the ongoing conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo. That is why. The reason is because this deadly militia group, Red Tabara, that tried to attempted a failed coup in 2015, the then President Pierre Nkurunziza. Remember what happened? That made Pierre Nkurunziza not leave Burundi until he died. I think they must have brought him to Kenya while he was extremely sick, but he passed on, but he never left. He never left Bujumbura after that attempted coup in 2015. So the people who carried out this were from Red Tabara. They are commanded by one Alexis Sindunchije, a Burundian national based in Belgium. See where they're based, and coordinated on the ground by one Baza Bapema in Uvira, South Kivu. They teamed up with Gumino, a fledgling Banyamulenge militia led on the ground by Colonel Shiaka. Just trying to give us an understanding on these major militia groups and how they became to be, and the history of these ethnic groups now being involved in the heart of this conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo. At some point, all factions opposed to the Rwandan government met in South Kivu to form an alliance known as the P5, comprising RNC, Faustin Twagiramunga's Rwanda's Dream Initiative, and then another group was Paul Rusesabagina's National Liberation Front. Now you know why he's in jail now in Rwanda. So he also is accused of having a group here. You know Paul Rusesabagina, the one who, the great Hotel Rwanda movie that went ahead to win many accolades, life story was based on. Paul Rusesabagina, he was arrested, I think last year, or was it last year? But now he's serving term in Rwandan jail. And so he's said to be having another group there, the National Liberation Front, and then there is another one, United Democratic Forces, led by Victor Ingabire, and then there's another group as well, the Democratic Forces for the Liberation of Rwanda. This is where, this is what brings a problem with the Rwandan government, the FDLR, Democratic Forces for the Liberation of Rwanda. And guess where they are situated in? They're situated in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and yet they call themselves Democratic Forces for the Liberation of Rwanda. Now, as much as Paul Kagame and Rwanda has been accused so much of the involvement, there has been accusations that, Paul Kagame and Rwanda has denied. But if another country, say Uganda, had a Democratic Forces for the Liberation of Kenya inside that country, I am for sure Kenya will not sit pretty and be accepting to that. Because why would you have a force inside your country with a name that seeks to cause threat, that is aggressive, and seems to have connotations that seems to be against even the government? Democratic Forces for the Liberation of Rwanda, what are they doing in the Democratic Republic of Congo? And they are said to be remnant of the genocidal force, and we know they are made up of the Hutus. Depending on the relationship that Rwanda has had with its respective neighbors, the P5 would receive support from sometimes Burundi, other times Uganda, and other times Democratic Republic of Congo. And for right now, the DRC is being accused of working with this militia group. And to make it worse, the United Nations mission there, MONUSCO, is also being accused now of backing the Rwandan government forces, which is working with this militia group, because we've not had anybody complain about the FDLR out apart from President Paul Kagame of Rwanda. So, depending on which day these P5, these militia groups wake up, they either will be collaborating with Burundi at one time, depending on whatever it is the mission is, the agenda is, and if at all it serves their interest, or Uganda or the DRC. And I was surprised to learn that we've been accusing Rwanda of, Rwanda has been accused, and there are numerous reports and numerous investigations that suggest Rwanda's involvement in this conflict. But do you know that the political wing of the M23 is in Rwanda, and Rwanda has accepted that. But the military wing of M23, guess where they are? They're based in Uganda. Okay, so now you know. Now the Banyamulenge mostly rejected them, saying they had no problem with Rwanda. At the time, Banyamulenge leaders visited Rwanda to discuss the formation of a P5 in their high plateau. When Burundi wanted to get rid of Tabara, the one that wanted to oust President Pierre Nkurunziza in 2015, its leader, Nyamusaraba, traveled to Bujumbura to offer his services. Okay, so he went to, so the government went to bed with a militia leader, a coup leader. So he went to Burundi to offer his services. He was supported, armed, and his small force beefed up with Imbonerakure, a Burundian faction close to the ruling National Council for the Defense of Democracy, Forces for the Defense of Democracy, and his family was relocated to Bujumbura under Burundi's government care. He established his base in the territory of Boboko in Uvira. You see? Now, with the renewed strength, Gumino attacked Tabara, killing a number of its commanders. That's how Tabara teamed up with the Banyamulenge's adversaries. And now, the leader of this Tabara, who was leading that coup that wanted to remove President Pierre Nkurunziza in office, I think he repented, as Boko Haram usually do in Nigeria. Here, they do have Boko Haram repentance, who sometimes are observed in the army. So I think the leader of this Tabara from Burundi repented, and the government accepted and gave him amnesty. And I think they're going to use him and his knowledge of this group to attack them. And his family was offered support and covering with the Burundian government, I think that time under the late President Pierre Nkurunziza. And that's how Tabara teamed up. So the ones who did not agree with him leaving, they teamed up with the Banyamulenge's adversary, the Mai Mai, okay, and attacked Banyamulenge, killed many, stole their cattle and burned their villages. The survivors fled South Kivu to Nakivale in Uganda and Musasa in Burundi. Some, especially youth, went as far as here in the country. Don't tell me that the ones I see on the streets out here. Now, at the height of tensions between Rwanda and Burundi, there were campaigns of misinformation created first by the Burundi government, You know, Rwanda has been having a problem, and I will repeat this because I've said it here before several times. Rwanda has been having a problem, the same problem now you see out of these things that I'm explaining here, to the point that their border between Rwanda and Burundi was closed at one point. A border between Rwanda and DRC was closed at another point, and border point between Rwanda and Uganda had been closed for quite over 2 years. The one between Rwanda and Burundi was closed for close to 3 years, I think, over that. So Rwanda has been in the center of all this. So the Banyamulenge diaspora went everywhere, pleading, denouncing the killing of their community in the Congolese highlands in vain. The DRC government, the international community, the media, and Dr. Denis Mukwege. Do you remember that doctor, the Nobel Peace Prize laureate, who was based in South Kivu? And he won this because he won this Laureate Peace Prize because of his helping of women who had been raped during this violent period of time. But when this was happening, he stayed quiet. And I remember his name coming up several times. Why is he not talking? Well, we have a renewed violence happening in that area and a lot of human suffering. So because of him having received that prestigious prize, his voice meant something in the international community, and yet at that point he chose to be quiet. So in 2018, the Banyamulenge diaspora, after they felt they were being attacked, all right, the Red Tabara joined arms with the Mai Mai to attack the Banyamulenge. So the Banyamulenge in the diaspora went everywhere trying to seek help and trying to raise awareness about them being attacked in that side of the Democratic Republic of Congo. But the whole world seems to have been quiet, not have responded in a way that maybe they felt they will get any kind of help. So in 2018, the Banyamulenge diaspora put up their money together to help Neho buy weapons, their local group that was being attacked, to buy weapons from FARDC. FARDC, now this is the army, the forces, official forces of the Democratic Republic of Congo. So this Banyamulenge in the diaspora put up some money and bought weapons. Can you imagine? Some militia group here in the country being sold arms by the Kenya Army. I'm just trying to figure that out in my head. And so that level of corruption. And so anyway, then they asked Banyamulenge commanders, that is Colonel Michael Rukunda, aka Makanika, based in Beni, and Colonel Charles Sematama, at the time commander of the DRC's 3411 Regiment based in Masisi, North Kivu, to desert the National Army and take command of Twirwaneho, because they felt you are our sons. Our people are being killed. So, but as much as you're fighting for the national army of the country, but you can't continue to do that. And so, in an interview immediately after his desertion, he actually left. Colonel Sematama declared, "I cannot serve a government to defend populations in other provinces while the same government is collaborating with people who are killing my community. I must make a choice." Now, when you have a national army and some few elements in there have that kind of psychology, now you understand why this conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo will keep going on, and why the national army in the DRC is really unable to be very effective, because look at that. It is easy to compromise. And so this general said, hey, you can't expect me to go bring peace elsewhere and to protect other parts of Congolese while my own people are being targeted here. So he agreed to take up that offer that was offered to him by the Banyamulenge diaspora and the money they had put together. And they said, you go and lead this militia group, Twirwaneho, and start fighting for your people. And the FARDC would give my intelligence on the amount of cows. Remember the FARDC? The Congolese army, the same army that supplied this group that now these colonels are going to work for with weapons. Now they're using them against. Now this army would give my intelligence on the amount of cows of young people in Banyamulenge, now using the information it has about these people to give them to their enemies so that they could go fight them, the Mai Mai. Oh, a lot of corruption. Send them to steal the cows and share the loot. Cows are a precious commodity in the Democratic Republic of Congo, with one costing even up to 1,000 US dollars. And about 300 cows were stolen on each raid. When the Banyamulenge would pursue the assailants, the FARDC would block them. As late as a few weeks ago, Minembwe was attacked. The stolen cows were sold openly in markets of Kamituga. So you see why Banyamulenge feels the need now, or maybe now why the M23 felt they have to come in and protect their own, because the Banyamulenges are the Nyarwanders. And this section is made up of the Tutsis, right? And so their stuff will be stolen, their cattle will be stolen, and they would see them being sold openly, and they could do nothing about it because the Democratic Republic of Congo's forces allegedly oversaw what was happening and stood in the way. And you can't fight against the army, right? So nearly 99% of the Banyamulenge cattle, estimated at 600,000, had been stolen. And the locality of Kipipu was known bastion of Mai Mai, where operations to attack Banyamulenge and rustle their cattle were being planned. After complaining to the FARDC in vain, Banyamulenge youth of the Twirwa Neho raided the location, recovered their cattle, and killed the Mai Mai. Dr. Mukwege, the Nobel Peace Prize winner again, the gynecologist, internationally recognized for his work of repelling female victims of sexual abuse, entered the scene. Now, that is the time he came out to speak, and he called the local media, took to social media, and declared that they are the same people who are killing us since 1996, they being referring to the Tutsis. So you see, he was also agreeing with the attacks against the Banyamulenge, all right? But he does not look back at the reasons why the Banyamulenge were retaliating after raising concerns, after the outcry over what was being meted against them. The government was supporting the people who were targeting them, and this person said nothing. Dr. Mukwege said nothing until, this was happening. So he says, no, these are people who have been, the same people who have been killing us since 1996, now the Tutsis, and of course he was referring to the Tutsis. Those are the Banyamulenges. He would even inflate the number of dead Mai Mai, claiming 220 civilians were killed after the Banyamulenge went and took their cattle, remember, and killed the Mai Mai. So this doctor said, they killed even up to 220 civilians. Given his fame, an international outcry ensued, triggering an investigation by the United Nations and the central and provincial governments. The inquiry found only 10 people had been killed. All were Mai Mai. But this doctor, Dr. Mukwege, had inflated this figure. I wonder why. Now, what are some of the drivers of this conflict as far as this communal violence is concerned and the ethnic stroking of this Drc'S conflict? You see where the M23 are slowly now coming in to feel like they have to protect their own. The violence does not have any single cause. Like I've said, there are numerous driving factors and interests being represented in this conflict. Within the complex setting of the violent conflicts in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, targeted killings of the Banyamulenge people rest on the claim they are Rwandan invaders who should be eliminated. As a minority group, Banyamulenge people were portrayed in Belgium colonial archives and post-independence political rhetoric as newcomers and foreign immigrants. I think they were brought in during that time, the colonial period, despite the fact that they had lived in what is now Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo for centuries. Banyamulenge people's collective status as Congolese citizens is hotly contested by most other ethnic groups in South Kivu who consider themselves the natives of Congolese. Now, they are Tutsis, and I'll let you know why perhaps the Belgium colonial government brought them here, because we know the same ethnic divisions were planted in Burundi, and I'll take my time one day to really explain to you what happened in Burundi, that they've been fighting this ethnic conflict. They've been having that for a very long time, and Burundi has seen, in the 80s and thereabout, in early 90s, they had several coups, and a lot of it were based on ethnic balkanization, because, during the colonial rule, the Belgians considered Tutsis to be more superior. They were the minority, even in Burundi. They were the minority, but the Belgians preferred them. They felt they were more intelligent, they were more prettier, I think they're more eye candy, good to look at, compared to the rest of the community. So they were given a certain status within the colonial administration, and they were given the best jobs, the best positions, and you know, they were favored. That is in Burundi, and that really made the majority Hutus felt a certain way, and you'll feel like every position of leadership was just being handed over to Tutsis. So I think they also brought them inside the DRC, and you know, the same favoritism continued. So you can see this is the legacy of colonialism that continues, that Belgium left behind, and they had no shame of returning one tooth of Patrice Lumumba to the DRC. I think they did that, did they? Yeah, they did that after they killed him, and his body was burned by acid, and only a tooth was remaining. So they brought it, and it was a whole charade of remember, of a ceremony, and then they brought a tooth back to DRC. What a shame. But anyway, so these are the things that were the legacy of Belgium, colonial past, because it appears the same kind of favoritism they showed towards the Tutsis in Burundi and also in Rwanda is the same, that mentality they brought here, and so the rest of the communities were not happy with that. So we can trace that back there. The Banyamulenge were attacked across DRC in 1996 and in 1998, and massacred in a Burundian refugee camp in 2004. Yes, they've had their own ethnic problems, and as I've said, I'll bring you that some other time. And such repeated cycles of violence are exacerbated by calls from political figures, military officers, and militia groups to wipe out the Banyamulenge, the Congolese Tutsi, and the so-called Rwandan descents in general. So it has not been a very nice thing that has been happening there. So currently state-led efforts are underway to end the warfare, and we've seen all these players coming in. And of course, the main perpetrators of violence against civilians, the main perpetrators who target violence against Banyamulenge have been the local Mai armed groups, known by leaders named e.g. Yakutumba, Ebweza, Bilonze, Bishambuke, and additionally complex cross-border dynamics reinforce these groups and insecurity in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. The Mai have military support from the Burundian rebels, and that's why Burundi is being dragged into this, known as the Red Tabara, as I have explained there earlier, the Forebu and the FNL, that one of that doctor. In addition, of Paul Rusesabagina. In addition, the Congolese National Army has provided arms, ammunition, intelligence, and safe corridors for these groups attacking Banyamulenge citizens. The Rwanda Defense Force has been supporting Burundian opposition, you see, and armed groups as they fight alongside the Mai. So external forces there playing out. And in July 2022, Burundi was said to have secretly sent hundreds of troops and members of the youth militia into neighboring DRC since the end of 2021 to fight an armed rebel group, a Burundian human rights group said, confirmed at that time. The main target of the operation is the Red Tabara, the Burundian Human Rights Initiative said, referring to the most active rebel groups in which deemed a terrorist organization by the Burundian government. Burundi has always denied carrying out any secret operations, insisting that it has acted only within the framework of joint operations by the East African Community and African Union or the United Nations. Burundi is part of the regional force agreed by the East African Community in July. So what I want to say as I conclude on this matter, as I started by mentioning that the M23 political wing is in Rwanda, and even the government has confirmed that. The M23 military wing is based in Uganda. Now we also see Burundi, and I think through my explanation you understand how Burundi has been mentioned and its part it's playing in the conflict and in support of this, in the fight against this militia, Red Tabara, but they're also supporting other militia groups to fight that. Okay, so it's a lot of interest. It's too much ongoing. So the question that we've been asking here, as even they form this East African community, force to go fight and help in stabilizing the Democratic Republic of Congo, which I don't know what exactly they're going to do differently, because as we speak right now, we have over 18,000 MONUSCO staff. In the DRC, 16,300 and something, those are the uniformed personnel who are actively trying to fight. The rest are doctors and other staffs, okay? So what is it that the East African Community Forces are going to do that these 16,000 plus armed forces from MONUSCO has been unable to do? Okay? And then Uganda, Burundi, of course, Rwandan forces are not allowed to go there, but Uganda and Burundi, who have been actively named and have had a part in this conflict, have been allowed to take their forces to try to fight in there and to bring peace. You can't bring a perpetrator who was a perpetrator yesterday, and today you're bringing this perpetrator and you are trying to make them be a savior of the same situation that they have created. And until maybe the mediators and the peace mission and everybody else involved are able to look at these things with some level of sobriety and the facts as they are, finding a solution to this conflict will be difficult. Ugandan forces are not supposed to be in the Democratic Republic of Congo. They have participated. They have aided some militia there. They've had a part in fueling this conflict. Burundian forces as well. They're not supposed to be there. They have interest. They're part of the problem. They can't come back and try to be a savior again now. And of course, Rwanda is just persona non grata at this point. So we need to remove these armies, and I've been consistent in saying that. And we bring in people who are neutral, like the Kenyan forces. Like South Sudan did send 750, is planning to send, I think, very soon. They're planning, they've been preparing them to go. I have a feeling about that, because I feel South Sudan needs its forces more. But hey, they're part of the East African community, and so they're willing, and this will be their first mission, peacekeeping missions. I guess they're just excited to go out there and also be part of this community, and I understand that, all right? But South Sudan has no interest in there, so that's okay. And let them get other countries from SADC, because DRC is also a member of SADC, and then have a serious conversation and a serious mission of getting rid of all these militia groups. And then DRC's government is very dishonest. It supports some of these militia, the FDLR, president of the DRC's government has not come out to refute that it is indeed working with FLDR. They've not said they're not, so we assume they are. And then on top of that, they're working with the government forces, and then on top of that, MONUSCO is supporting them in that effort. So MONUSCO is also supporting a militia group in there. By supporting the national forces who are working with this militia group, MONUSCO is essentially now supporting a militia group that is participating in this conflict. So until we're able to look at these matters and look at the facts as they are, this conflict will continue, and we might not get to see the end of it, and the suffering shall continue. So anyway, today I will digress from that, but we're just looking at the ethnic divisions that have been stroking this DRC's conflict, and I was just giving us a brief history of the Bunyamulenge, the Rwandan, the Nyarwandas, as they are known, community in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and their connection to why M23, because yesterday M23 came out and said, hey, the DRC's government is now targeting the local Rwandan community in the DRC. And if they keep doing this, then we will have no choice but to come out and support our people. So we cannot have a government being a perpetrator. That should not be the case. Either, whether DRC or the accused Rwanda or the accused other country, we shouldn't have that. So anyway, I'll stop there for today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you here tomorrow again, God willing. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye. you.